Okay, let me explain how this is going to work. This is a random number generator. It's a very simple website, I'll link it in the description. It's the same one I use for the Tomodachi Bros random options. What we're going to be doing today for the 100 sub special is no game got more than one vote each. In order to make this as fair and impartial as possible, I have numbered the entries in the order that they were submitted, giving each a number 1 through 5. Then we're going to spin the wheel here by pushing this button, and we will have our answer. You saw it firsthand? Let's raise some Digimon. Welcome everyone to the digital world. I am your humble host and tour guide, the Hipster Snekmon, here in celebration of our 100 subscriber special contest. A very big thank you to everyone who took the time to vote, and a special congratulations to Studious Clo, whose vote won the final RNG poll. Digimon World was the first game in a long series of Digimon titles launched on the PS1 in 1999, operating as half-adventure RPG and half-pseudo-emulation of the original Digimon Pendulum keychain. And, amusingly enough, I actually grew up playing this game, as it was one of the very first games I even got on the PS1. How does it hold up now? Let's take a deeper look. The game starts with an opening cutscene and that sweet, sweet late 90s CG that makes everyone look decidedly unnatural, and our protagonist being drawn into the digital world through his Digivice. Once deposited safely into the world of Digimon, we are prompted to name our hero and answer a couple of simple questions from local elder and sage Digimon, which ultimately serves to decide if we begin our adventure with the reptile Digimon, Agumon, or the mammal Digimon, Gabumon. Wait, it says here Gabumon is also a reptile? Wow, that's just weird. Anyway, we begin with our rookie-level Digimon partner, and Digimon informs us that the once prosperous File City has fallen into ruin as Digimon are turning feral, losing sense of who they once were, and causing havoc all across File Island. We're then tasked with raising our partner and bringing home these estranged and lost Digimon, in order to not just restore the city to its former glory, but will also aid us in our quest as well, as many who return to the city will open new shops and options that will help us. And thus, our story begins. To begin with, the game looks good. This is in part because the segments of the map are broken up into relatively small areas with only a few characters and assets on each. The Digimon look how they should, and the level of attention paid to each is actually impressive for the technological allowances of the time. The animations are smooth and well done, even if a lot of training involves moving a static object and Digimon playing a selected attack animation. The special effects are pretty good too, if a little understated at times. They get the job done. The Digivolving sequences themselves are kinda surreal, as it allows you to see the wireframes of the Digimon as their textures explode off, really giving you a sense that these creatures are an artificial simulation of something approximating a natural creature. Sometimes it's also a simulation of bombs, knives, and guns, but hey, details. Sound-wise, this game ends up being a bit of a mixed bag. The soundtrack is actually really good, the battle themes in particular, my personal favorite being the final boss track if you want to look that up, especially as it relies on rock motifs and maybe tinges of punk when you get into the boss encounters. The town themes are tranquil and the music varies from the ominous melodies of a haunted house to the Great Plains to the tops of mountains. The music will suit each perfectly. The problem comes with the sound effects. They're about 3 or 4 times louder than they have any right to be, and the Digimon cries are legitimately terrible. Seriously, they sound like either a woman gasping in surprise, a cat meowing, or a dying car horn. But they're all tinny, low-quality sound samples, and you'll hear them ad nauseum throughout your adventure. Really, you're doing yourself a favor if you just want to mute the game as a whole, because the game also feels the need to play a sound effect for every single footstep. Yours, your Digimon, and any other character loaded into the field, and does so without so much as the luxury of a sound randomizer, so it gets old really fast. And for the most ambitious aspect of the game, the actual gameplay. Digimon opening the game by asking if you have a Digivice is somewhat significant, and I do as a matter of fact. Here's a photo of it. Don't get too excited though, this is one of the 20th anniversary Digivice toys that just got launched a few months ago, not an original. I couldn't find the original toys when I was a kid, so I stupidly picked up the D3 pedometer game instead of a real Digivice. Man, O2 sucked. Anyway, how you answer Digimon gives you your starting rookie level partner, and the game begins in earnest, as I've said. But this might actually be something of a disservice to the player, in a way, as the higher the level of your Digimon, the more demanding they'll ultimately become. You'll not only be spending most of your Digimon's life in the various gyms in the game, grinding their stats up in a process that can only be described as painfully laborious, because you don't just raise a general power stat like you do in the original toys. There are 6 stats: HP, MP, attack, defense, speed, and brains. And if you want a good champion level Digimon, you better get to grinding. But you'll also be responding to their needs too, much the same way as you would in the Pendulum Life Sim toys. They need to eat entirely too much, and they need to use the bathroom entirely too often. This raises some problems in almost all of them from the same source, the RNG. For starters, unlike the Pendulum games, food is quantified as limited and wildly inefficient items, so they also take up space in your backpack. Not just that, I've had Digimon go literal in-game days without eating or using the restroom at all, and they're fine. But then there come days where they need to eat 6 times in a day's duration or hit the toilet 3 or 4 times. This indicates to me that there isn't some invisible hunger gauge that gradually depletes over time, but that these needs are triggered Oregon Trail style via a random number generator. And rookies eat a fair bit and only stay at that level for a brief time before they'll turn to champion levels. Yes, Digimon will digivolve after enough time has passed, just like in the Pendulum, whether you're ready for them or not. And since RNG influences Digivolution, if you've met the prereqs for 1 or more champions, which is an easy thing to do frankly, and the game will never tell you what those are. So if you bring home a big eater like Tyrannomon or Monochromon, you can be eaten at a house and home right out of the gate and be stuck largely unable to meet their needs at all. To say nothing of the fact that the wild Digimon you fight have stats that aren't visible to the player, so you'll have to learn that this game has a difficulty curve that's more of a difficulty wall. And you'll soon find yourself in the gameplay loop of training repeatedly, hitting the bathroom, training some more, sleeping, and doing it over and over again for the better part of your Digimon's on average lifespan of 20 in-game days. Starting with a Digi-Egg and having a slower burn to start would probably set the player's expectations at a more realistic level, because this game is very, very slow paced start to finish, even if you manage to make the slog of raising an ultimate level Digimon and not having gone broke in the process. And then at the end of those 20-some days, your Digimon meets its end, even if you haven't finished that dungeon you're nearly through, and it will restart its life as an egg anyway, forcing you back to the beginning literally and figuratively. And let's just say Yggdrasil help you if you're trying to get a particular Digimon. You're gonna need a guide, no doubt. Like, for example, let's say you want to get Kabuterimon. First, you'll need Kunemon, who you get by having an in-training Digimon sleep in the area named Kunemon's bed, but that's a 50% chance to queue, or a Biomon apparently, and then get their HP to 1000 and their attack, defense, and speed to 100, and then you might get Kabuterimon, provided you haven't met the prereqs for some other form and the RNG decides it just doesn't like you today. Then, if you wanted to go all the way to get Hercules Kabuterimon, you better get your HP over 3500, your MP over 2500, and all stats over 250. Oh, and your happiness gauge can't be maxed out. Good luck with that, by the way. So the game is 1 part Pendulum game and 1 part action-adventure RPG, and that latter half takes you outside the gym for exploration around File Island and to probably get your butt handed to you because the enemies are scaled all way harder than they ought to be. So again, get back to the gym after you beat that first Agumon, because the game sets the player's expectations entirely too low with the tutorial battle. Once you're good and way overpowered, you're strong enough to make any actual progress, which will resemble you walking into a battle and then setting your controller down, because unless you dedicate several hundred stat points into the brains category, your control is limited. I mean, it's already limited regardless, as the Digimon will fight automatically on its own, and might or might not take any command you've unlocked with the otherwise worthless stat as a helpful suggestion, even if it's at max discipline. And you probably got that due to one of the game's innumerable exploits and glitches. For example, offer your Digimon an HP recovery item when they're at full health, then scold them for not taking it. Repeat, and your Digimon will have maximum discipline and happiness. Oh yeah, that's a thing. This game is incredibly buggy and glitchy. Some of these are very minor and will cause text to not appear properly, and others, like the jukebox, will just flat out crash your game. Bugs aside, you have to meet the Digimon's needs with limited resources, defeat overpowered enemies, and do it all in a time limit. Does that make it sound like this is some sort of sadistic grindcore RPG? That's because it kind of is. Anytime you're adventuring, trying to further the plot is time that you're not grinding for your next Digivolution, and then despite that, they'll still die of old age at some point, and upon revival, a Digimon will only have a small percentage of what its previous incarnation had. And it will save some attacks between forms, which you can customize to some extent, and it will give you some drive to try for lots of different forms over time, but the RNG is so unbelievably punishing that upon playing it again for this review, I remember now why little me got tired of this game and ultimately quit playing. At the end of the day, the game is defeated by trying to be too much all at once. The Digimon raising aspect is crippled because items, money, and training aren't balanced well at all. The adventure aspect is hobbled because it hinges almost exclusively on getting stronger Digimon forms. Thankfully, though, the game devs didn't just stop refining this formula, and Digimon World Next Order for the PS4 ended up being a very fun if challenging game that gives the player way more control than going about a Digimon raising action-adventure RPG. This one, however, was graded harshly back when it was new, and I fully understand why it would have been. It's on brand, but it's improperly paced, and it's a frustrating game to play, especially with superior games like Digimon Story Cyber Sleuth or the Dawn and Dusk games being vast improvements in the franchise's overall formula. Overall, give it a try if you're curious, but don't feel too bad if you get tired of it in a pretty big hurry and move on to more modern incarnations. Digimon is a fantastic series, and the game stays true to its roots is admirable, if misguided. This has been the Tamer Snek. Thank you guys, in all seriousness, for sticking with me and helping build up this channel to over 100 subscribers. The channel isn't even a year old yet, so let's try to spread the word and shoot for 250 by next year's Snekiversary. Q&A session sound good? Let me know in the comments below. If you liked today's video, be sure to tap that like button to let me know. To help us keep growing, tap the subscribe and bell icons if you haven't already. Thank you again, and join me here each week for obscure reviews, indie excellence, Snek talks, and more. And I'll see you there.